The industry just hit the panic button. For years, we've watched the public unraveling of Kanye West and the quiet, dignified exit of Teyana Taylor from the spotlight, but we never knew the why. We thought it was just creative differences or complicated egos. We were wrong. Charleston White, a man who treats ND as like scrap paper, just pulled the pin on a grenade that's been sitting in the G.O.O.D.music archives since 2017. This isn't just another rant for clicks. This is a calculated exposure of a hidden chapter that involves a secret third party, a late-night studio confrontation, and a confession so damaging it reportedly turned Kanye's God complex into pure, unadulterated fear. According to sources who were close enough to smell the burnt bridges, Teyana Taylor isn't just an ex-protégé. She is the keeper of the one secret Kanye thought he'd buried. A secret involving a legendary celebrity, an emotional betrayal, and a landmine that both stars have been standing on for years. The silence is finally breaking. If you thought you knew the history of G.O.O.D.music, prepare to realize you've been lied to for a decade. The truth is much darker than the drama. To understand why Charleston White's latest claims have the entire industry looking over their shoulders, you have to go back, way back before the headlines, before the public fallout, and before the silence that eventually defined the relationship between Teyana Taylor and Kanye West. For years, the world looked at G.O.O.D.music as this untouchable creative fortress, a place where geniuses collaborated in the mountains of Wyoming or behind the tinted glass of high-end studios in Los Angeles. But according to the bomb Charleston just dropped, that fortress wasn't built on inspiration. It was built on a series of carefully crafted lies, NDAs, and an emotional power struggle that would eventually leave one of the industry's most talented women ice cold. The narrative we were sold was beautiful. The legendary Kanye West, a man who saw talent where others saw noise, discovered a young, raw energy from Harlem named Teyana Taylor. He mentored her, he gave her the stage, and he supposedly helped her craft the sonics of her most iconic era. But Charleston White is telling us that we only saw the curated version of the story. He's claiming that behind those closed studio doors, there was a tension that nobody, not the fans, not the blogs, not even the insiders, dared to talk about in public. The word everyone used was complicated. If you asked anyone at the label back then about Teyana and Kanye, that was the go-to answer. It wasn't creative, it wasn't professional, it was complicated. And now, we're finally starting to understand why. Charleston alleges that the drama didn't start with Kanye's public spirals or Teyana's marriage issues with Iman Shumpert. No, this goes deeper. It started when Teyana was just a teenager, a girl with a voice and a vision, being pulled into the orbit of a man who was already a force of nature. Kanye West was, and is, a creative hurricane. He can build a career from scratch, but he can just as easily blow one apart with a single emotional outburst. Teyana wasn't like the other artists on the roster. She didn't treat Kanye like a god or a genius whose every word was law. She treated him like a human being. And according to Charleston's sources, that was the first crack in the foundation. Kanye couldn't handle someone who looked him in the eye and didn't flinch. Think about the environment of G.O.O.D.music during that time. It was high stakes, high stress, and completely volatile. You had the biggest names in the world fighting for Kanye's attention, but Teyana was the one who allegedly saw the side of him that he kept hidden from the yes men. She saw the panic, she saw the insecurity, and she saw the moments when the genius mask started to slip. Charleston White claims he has spoken to people who were close enough to smell the smoke, people who witnessed the late-night arguments that had nothing to do with music and everything to do with a power dynamic that was shifting. The most shocking part of Charleston's revelation isn't just that they fought, it's the reason they fought. He's claiming that Teyana Taylor wasn't afraid of Kanye West. It was the other way around. Kanye was afraid of her. Now stop and think about that for a second. This is a man who has gone toe-to-toe with Jay-Z, clashed with Drake, and challenged entire multinational corporations. Why would he be intimidated by a young woman from Harlem? Charleston says it's because Teyana knew something. She had a piece of information, a memory of a specific night, or a secret so sensitive that it gave her a level of leverage that no contract or NDA could ever silence. There was a tweet from a G.O.O.D. music engineer years ago that everyone ignored at the time. It said, "Tay saw everything. She kept her mouth shut, but she didn't forget." Back then, we all thought it was about studio sessions, or maybe a creative disagreement. But in light of Charleston's new claims, that tweet feels like a prophetic warning. Teyana was the observer. She was in the room when things were said that weren't meant for public consumption. She was there when the emotional chaos reached a breaking point. As Teyana matured as an artist, the relationship reportedly became even more charged. Sources describe sessions where the energy would shift from laughter to screaming in a matter of minutes. One producer allegedly said that Teyana was one of the only people who could stand up to Kanye without backing down, and that made everyone in the room incredibly uncomfortable. It wasn't just an artist fighting for her vision. It was a woman who knew the man behind the curtain and wasn't impressed by the show. Charleston White is suggesting that this hidden chapter is the reason Teyana eventually walked away. People always wondered why she left on such cold terms, why she felt underappreciated and ignored. The public story was that Kanye was too busy with his own projects to finish hers, but Charleston says that's a convenient cover-up. The real story involves a secret agreement, a personal betrayal, and a night in 2017 that changed everything. During that period, Kanye was spiraling, and Teyana was fighting for her career. She was trying to get her album released, but she kept hitting walls. The delays weren't accidental. They weren't just because of Kanye's creative process. Charleston alleges that there was a deeper, more painful reason why Kanye was distancing himself from Teyana. It was a stalemate. Two people holding the same landmine, both knowing that if one person let go, everything would blow up. Insiders are now whispering that Teyana bonded with Kanye because she understood his chaos, but that bond eventually turned into a burden. She became the keeper of his secrets, the witness to his most unstable moments. And according to Charleston, someone has finally broken their silence. Someone who was in the room during a secret confrontation that has been buried under layers of legal silence for years. This person claims that the truth isn't just messy, it's dangerous. It involves a betrayal that wasn't just professional, but deeply personal. Charleston White's bomb has left millions of people staring at their screens because it recontextualizes every interaction we've seen between these two. It explains the complicated vibe. It explains why Teyana went ice cold. It explains why Kanye, a man who loves to have the last word, has remained curiously silent about her for years. We were told it was a mentorship, but Charleston is painting a picture of a psychological battleground. And then there's the mystery woman. Charleston hints that the tension between Teyana and Kanye wasn't just about the two of them. There was a third party, a younger artist, a vocalist that Teyana had actually mentored herself. This is where the story takes a turn into pure betrayal. Imagine being Teyana Taylor. You've given your loyalty to a label, you've defended a man when the whole world was against him, and you've kept his secrets hidden from the light. And then, you walk into a room and realize that the man you protected is confiding in someone else, someone you brought into the fold. This isn't just industry tea. This is a story about the cost of loyalty in a world where everyone has a price. Charleston White is claiming that he has the receipts, the voice notes, and the confirmation from people who witnessed the fallout. He's saying that the world is about to see a version of Kanye West and Teyana Taylor that will make it impossible to ever look at them the same way again. As we lead up to the events of that fateful night in 2017, the pieces are starting to fall into place. The missed deadlines, the sudden unfollowing on social media, the cryptic interviews where Teyana talked about knowing her worth. It wasn't just about a career move. It was about escaping a situation that had become emotionally toxic. Charleston says that the truth is worse than anyone imagined, and that the secret Teyana holds is the only thing that has kept the peace for this long. But the peace is over. Charleston White has opened the door, and the air is rushing in. The industry is holding its breath, because if Teyana Taylor, or this mystery witness, decides to tell the full story, it won't just affect Kanye's reputation. It will shake the very foundation of G.O.O.D. music's legacy. We are looking at a story of a woman who saw the genius at his lowest point, and a man who was terrified of what that meant for his future. The tension was building, the cracks were widening, and in 2017, it all finally exploded in a studio session that was never supposed to be leaked. This was the night the stalemate ended. This was the night Teyana Taylor realized that the man she had been protecting was the same man who was ready to let her career burn to save his own. And as Charleston White prepares to drop the next detail, the internet is left asking, what did Teyana see? What did Kanye admit? And who was the person who finally decided to talk? The history of G.O.O.D.music is being rewritten in real time. This isn't just about music anymore. This is about power, betrayal, and the secrets that stars keep in the dark. Teyana Taylor has been silent for a long time, but as Charleston says, the truth is coming out whether they want it to or not. The smoke is clearing, and what's underneath is a story of two people who knew too much about each other to ever be friends again. The year was 2017, a time that history books will eventually mark as the beginning of the great unraveling for the G.O.O.D. music empire. To the outside world, it looked like a creative peak. The legendary Wyoming sessions were on the horizon, and the industry was buzzing about a string of 7-song albums that were supposed to redefine the culture. But inside the rooms where the music actually happens, the atmosphere wasn't one of inspiration. It was one of pure, unadulterated chaos. And right at the center of that storm were Teyana Taylor and Kanye West. According to the explosive details Charleston White is now dragging into the light, Teyana wasn't just another artist on the roster during this period. She was the soul of the label, the one person who kept the engine running while everyone else was distracted by the spectacle. She was fighting tooth and nail for her career, desperate to get her project, KTSE, over the finish line. But every time she reached out, every time she tried to lock in a session, she was met with a wall of silence or a half-baked promise. We all saw the frustration bubble over later when the album finally dropped and it was unfinished. But Charleston says the real incident happened long before those public complaints. It happened on a night that was never supposed to make it into the blogs. The story goes that Teyana, tired of being ignored and feeling the weight of her career slipping through her fingers, decided to show up at the studio unannounced. She wasn't looking for a fight. She was looking for her producer. She was looking for the man who promised her the world. She expected to walk into a room filled with engineers, writers, and the usual high-energy creative chaos. Instead, she walked into a silence that felt heavy, intimate, and entirely wrong. And there, sitting with Kanye, was the one person Teyana never expected to see in that context. A young vocalist, a girl Teyana had personally taken under her wing. This is the first major twist that Charleston White is emphasizing. This wasn't a case of Kanye being in the studio with a random model or a groupie. This was someone Teyana viewed as a little sister, someone she had mentored and protected in an industry that usually eats young girls alive. To see this girl sitting there, in the middle of a private, deep conversation with the man who was supposed to be finishing Teyana's music, was a betrayal that went beyond business. It was emotional. It was a slap in the face to every ride or die moment Teyana had ever given to that label. The insider who spoke to Charleston claims that when Teyana walked in, the room didn't just go quiet, it went ice cold. The young vocalist reportedly looked like she'd seen a ghost, and Kanye, for the first time in a long time, looked genuinely exposed. It wasn't that they were caught in a physical act. It was the energy of the room. It was the intimacy of the conversation. Teyana allegedly didn't even raise her voice at first. She just looked at them and said the words that would haunt the label for years. "So this is why my album isn't finished." In that one sentence, years of frustration exploded. Teyana realized that Kanye wasn't too busy, or spiritually overwhelmed, or focused on the vision. He was simply investing his time and his emotional currency into someone else, someone Teyana had trusted. And when Kanye tried to snap back, when he tried to play the genius card and tell her not to make it about her, Teyana didn't back down. This is the moment Charleston says the power dynamic of G.O.O.D.music flipped on its head. Teyana went from the loyal protege to the woman who knew too much. The argument that followed was legendary. According to the source, it wasn't just about music anymore. It was about loyalty, about the secrets Teyana had kept for Kanye during his darkest mental health episodes, and about the fact that he was now confiding in a stranger while treating Teyana like she was the problem. The young vocalist allegedly tried to leave, but Teyana wouldn't let her. She wanted the girl to see exactly who she was dealing with. She wanted the truth out in the open. But here is where the bomb really drops. Charleston White is claiming that during this heated exchange, Teyana whispered something to Kanye, something so specific and so damaging that it stopped him in his tracks. She allegedly told him, "I know things about you too, yeah." According to the witness, Kanye's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The bravado, the yelling, the "I'm the greatest of all time" energy, it all evaporated. He reportedly stepped back, his hands started shaking, and he looked genuinely terrified. Why would a man like Kanye West be terrified of a girl from Harlem? Because, as Charleston is now alleging, Teyana Taylor was the one who saw him at his absolute lowest. She was there for the nights that were erased from the public record. She was there for the breakdowns that weren't for the cameras. And more importantly, she knew about a specific incident involving another major celebrity, a night where Kanye had lost control in a way that would have ended his marriage and his reputation right then and there. The mystery vocalist, who later reached out to Charleston with a shaking voice note, confirmed that she was the one Kanye was confiding in that night. But he wasn't flirting with her. He was hiding with her. He was looking for someone who didn't know his history, someone he could manipulate into seeing him as the hero again, because he knew Teyana already saw him as the villain. He was begging this young girl not to tell Teyana what he had just admitted to her. But he didn't realize that Teyana already knew. She had always known. She was just waiting for him to be man enough to admit it to her face. This revelation turned a standard studio fight into a psychological stalemate. From that night on, the relationship was dead. Teyana realized that her big brother was actually a man who feared her honesty. She saw that he would rather sabotage her career and keep her at a distance than face the truth of what she knew about him. Charleston says this is the real reason Teyana was underappreciated at the label. It wasn't a lack of talent, it was a punishment for her silence. Kanye couldn't handle the fact that she held the keys to his undoing. The aftermath of that confrontation was just as messy as the night itself. Teyana reportedly tried to quit G.O.O.D.music right then and there. She told her team she was done with the loyalty, done with the secrets, and done with being the ride or die for a man who didn't even respect her time. But the industry is a cage. Contracts, NDAs, and financial ties kept her locked in. The label knew they couldn't lose her, not because of the music she made, but because of the secrets she carried. If she left on bad terms and started talking, the entire house of cards would come crashing down. So, they did what the industry always does. They iced her out while keeping her under contract. They made it impossible for her to move forward, but they made it dangerous for her to walk away. And Kanye? He became paranoid. According to Charleston's sources, he spent weeks after that night checking who Teyana was talking to, who she was seen with, and whether she was planning a tell-all. He was a man living in fear of his own protege. The most haunting part of this second chapter is the realization that the mystery woman, the young vocalist, wasn't the cause of the drama. She was just the mirror. She was the person Kanye used to try and convince himself he was still the genius everyone loved. But Teyana walking in shattered that mirror. It forced Kanye to see himself through the eyes of someone who knew the truth, and he couldn't handle the reflection. Charleston White is making it clear that this wasn't just a scandal, it was a betrayal of the highest order. Teyana had been the one person in Kanye's orbit who didn't want anything from him but respect. She didn't want his money. She wanted the album he promised. She didn't want his fame. She wanted his honesty. And when she realized she would never get either, she went ice cold. As we move into the final part of this exposure, the focus shifts from the studio to the secret itself. What was the incident that Teyana knew about? Who was the major celebrity involved that night? And why is Charleston White saying that if this specific name comes out, it won't just destroy Kanye, but it will shake the entire foundation of the music industry? The pieces are all there, and the fuse has been lit. Teyana Taylor has kept this landmine from exploding for years. But with Charleston White involved, the countdown has officially begun. The world thought they knew why Teyana Taylor left G.O.O.D.music. They thought they knew why Kanye West started his downward spiral. But the truth, as it turns out, is tied to a single night, 2 betrayed women, and a secret that was never meant to be told. The stalemate is breaking, and the fallout is going to be global. Now, this is where the story shifts from messy industry drama to something far more calculated, far more dangerous, and, if Charleston White is right, potentially career-ending. To understand the gravity of the secret Teyana Taylor has been carrying, you have to look at the collateral damage. This isn't just about a fight in a studio. It's about a night that Kanye West has reportedly spent years trying to erase from the collective memory of everyone involved. According to Charleston's source, the secret isn't just embarrassing, it's careering. It's the kind of information that doesn't just hurt your feelings. It changes how the entire world views your legacy. And the reason it has stayed hidden for so long is because of a high-stakes stalemate. 2 people, Teyana and Kanye, standing on opposite sides of a landmine, knowing that if either one of them steps off, the whole mountain collapses. The night in question didn't just involve Teyana, Kanye, and the young vocalist. There was a 4th person in the room, a major celebrity, someone so high-profile, so respected, and so influential that their mere presence in the story makes it radioactive. Charleston White hasn't dropped the name yet, but the hints he's leaving are enough to set the internet on fire. He describes this person as someone Kanye respected and feared disappointing. Someone who represents the pinnacle of the culture. When you think of names like Jay-Z, or perhaps a mentor figure like Kid Cudi, or even a high-stakes rival like Drake, you start to see why the stakes were so high. On this night, Kanye reportedly didn't just have a creative meltdown. He had a total emotional collapse. But it wasn't the kind of collapse we see on Instagram Live. It was raw, it was vulnerable, and it involved Kanye admitting to something, a mistake, a situation, or a choice that he never intended for the world to know. The insider claims Kanye looked at the young vocalist and said 11 words that destroyed his bond with Teyana forever. "Don't tell Teyana. She won't understand. She'll use it against me." Imagine the betrayal. Teyana Taylor, the woman who had been his ride or die for a decade. The woman who stood by him when the industry turned its back. The woman who defended his most unstable moments to the press. To hear that the man you protected saw you as a threat, as someone who would use his pain against him, was the final straw. But when Teyana walked into that room and heard him say it, she didn't scream. She didn't cry. She went into a state of absolute icy clarity. She reportedly looked him in the eye and said, "I already knew. I just wanted you to trust me enough to admit it." That moment of validation was, according to the source, the most terrifying moment of Kanye's life. Because if Teyana knew, who else did? And if she had been holding that secret for years, what else was she holding? Charleston claims that Kanye cracked in a way that not even his inner circle had ever seen. He realized that his power dynamic over Teyana was a total illusion. He wasn't the mentor, he was the one being protected. But here is the second twist that has everyone questioning everything. Why would Teyana Taylor, a woman known for her fire, her honesty, and her keep-it-real attitude, stay silent for 7 years? Charleston White alleges that Teyana wasn't just protecting Kanye. She was protecting herself. The secret reportedly connects back to a project Teyana worked on, a conversation she was never supposed to overhear, and a situation that involved a major legal or financial risk for both of them. It wasn't just tea, it was a liability. If the truth came out, it wouldn't just hurt Kanye's reputation. It could have potentially derailed Teyana's career at a time when she was just starting to reach her peak as a film star and creative director. Charleston says the mystery celebrity in the room saw everything. They saw the genius broken. They saw the protégé take control of the room. And they saw the silent agreement made in that moment. You keep my secret, and I'll let you go. This explains everything we've seen since 2017. The cold exit, why Teyana left G.O.O.D.music without a thank you post or a big farewell. The distance, why Kanye stopped mentioning her, even when she was winning awards and dominating the culture. The paranoia, why Kanye reportedly became obsessed with NDAs and checking the loyalty of everyone around him. But stalemates don't last forever. The young vocalist who spoke to Charleston says that the weight of the secret has become too much. She's watching Kanye's public spirals, watching Teyana's rise to Hollywood stardom, and realizing that the truth is the only thing left. She claims that if Teyana ever decides to speak, the world will finally understand why Kanye has been spiraling for years. It wasn't just the media, or the divorce, or the industry politics. It was the fear of this one specific night being exposed. Charleston White is playing a dangerous game. He's holding the final piece, the name of the mystery celebrity and the specific detail of the confession. He says the world wasn't ready for the full drop, but the clock is ticking. Insiders are already whispering that more receipts are coming. Voice notes, studio logs, and witness statements are reportedly changing hands as we speak. This isn't just about a rap feud, it's about the hidden chapter of an era that defined a generation. It's about a woman who outgrew her mentor by learning his darkest truth, and a man who lost his power the moment he realized he couldn't buy her silence. The truth is coming out, not through a press release or a polished interview, but through the one man who doesn't care about the consequences. As Charleston White says, it's a bomb waiting to explode. And when it does, the debris is going to hit every corner of the industry. The names involve the biggest players in music, the secrets involve the deepest betrayals, and the fallout will be irreversible. The stalemate is over, the silence is gone. And the truth? The truth is about to shake the culture to its very core. This is the moment where the theories stop and the reality sets in. Charleston White has opened a door that Kanye West and Teyana Taylor spent nearly a decade trying to keep locked. We've seen the tension, we've heard the rumors, and now we have the framework of a betrayal that changes the entire history of G.O.O.D.music. But now, the conversation belongs to you. Do you believe Teyana Taylor has been the silent protector of Kanye's legacy all this time? Why would she hold on to a careering secret for 7 years, if not to protect her own future? And the biggest question of all, who is the mystery celebrity? Who is the one person Kanye feared disappointing more than anyone else in the world? Drop your theories in the comments. Is it a mentor? A rival? A legend we haven't even considered? Your insights are the fuel that keeps this investigation moving. If your jaw dropped when you heard the 11 words that broke their bond, hit that like button. If you want to be the first to know when Charleston drops the name and the final confession, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. The truth is snowballing, and you don't want to be the last one to hear the explosion.